Hi, everybody. Welcome tonight to our webcast about the subject Know Life at Work, How to Be Authentic and Still Be Successful. And as you know, I am Angelique Tsang, and I'm the founder of, amongst others, Superwomen Babes Club and Let Love Come to You. And I have tonight as a guest Karin Peeters. And Karin is a coach operating in London, and the reason why I invited Karin was because I read an article in which she was interviewed about the way that she worked with clients that were basically extremely frustrated at work, and so when I read that, I was actually really interested in interviewing her because what she was talking about resonated so much with me, and especially my own life and also the lives of my clients, that I thought this seems to be an extremely important subject. So I would like to welcome Karin. Karin, thank you for being our guest tonight.
Thank you very much, Angelique. I feel really honored. I feel really honored to be here.
Oh, it's our honor to have you and to listen to you. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into coaching all these executives, so that people know a little bit about your background, and then maybe give people who haven't read the article a little bit of a taste about what the article was referring to.
Sure. I used to work, I'm from the Netherlands myself, and I used to work for Heineken, the beer company, enjoying a very fast-paced corporate career. And for many years, I utterly and completely loved it, until at some point I got into a new position, and I really went to quite a difficult patch. I went to my manager to ask for some help, and he recommended coaching to me. So I spoke to a lovely woman called Judith. I still have regular contact with her today. And she really helped me go through this difficult time in my career. And at some point I realized that I was quite removed from myself, and this scared me a lot. I realized I was doing a lot of things that I totally wasn't agreeing with, and that I wasn't happy with the person I was becoming, so I decided to quit. And this was quite a scary decision to make, I have to admit. And I quit, and I went traveling to India and to Nepal, and I did a lot of soul searching, so to speak. And at some point I realized I didn't want to go back into the corporate world as such, but still wanted to be connected to it, but in a different way. And being very inspired by what Judith did for me, I thought I want to do the same for other people who, like me, are frustrated and unhappy in their working life. So I decided to retrain. I had some psychology background, but not enough proper education, so I retrained. And now, since 5 years, I'm living in London, having my own coaching company.
Yes.
And I'm really happy that I dared to take that big dive into the deep and into the unknown, and quit and start following my heart. So that's a little bit about where I am right now. And your other question was about the Guardian article.
Yes.
The interview that you read. What is it about? I think for me, in a nutshell, it is about people who go into their workplace and put on a mask or a facade and show a smiley, optimistic, buckle up, kind of getting on with it face when they're at work. But actually behind this mask there is a lot of stress, worry, anxiety, unhappiness, unfulfillment, unsatisfactory feelings, that are all being hidden from colleagues and from managers. And I find that a very, very fascinating subject, and I see it in a lot of my clients, and I know it for myself from my own corporate background. So that is, in a nutshell, what the article is about.
Yeah, yeah, and when you look at your current clientele, right? A lot of them probably are from the United Kingdom. Do you feel that that the article reflects the lives of a lot of your clients, or is that just a specific segment of your clients, or is the work-life balance in London or in big cities just a little bit crazier than other cities? What is it that you think is happening here? Because I resonated so much with your article, and I wasn't even a banker, because your article was about bankers, specifically about bankers. I was never a banker, but I have clients who are not all bankers, but they are reporting the same type of issues. So do you think it's actually more common, these feelings of having to wear a mask and anxiety and stress, and that we might actually find it in any type of profession, or is it more industry specific or maybe location specific?
I unfortunately think that it's exactly what you say, that it's more common than we think. So and that's very unfortunate. I wish it was otherwise. The people that come to see me, some of them are from the United Kingdom. Other people are from the Netherlands, because they like to speak they live here in London, but they like to speak in their mother tongue. But I have people coming from all over the world, from Greece, from Canada, from Poland, from Pakistan, from America, from Italy, like everywhere. That's one of the things I like so much about being a coach in London, that it's so international. And a lot of them talk about not being happy in their career. And that's, of course, a bit of how to say that, like, of course, a lot of people are happy in their jobs, but they wouldn't come to see me because there's no need. So it's, of course, not a very, representative image that like 80% of my clients find their work life unsatisfactory. Because otherwise they wouldn't even come. But what I do find that I, of course, can only speak about the Netherlands, so I would be really interested to hear what our listeners might think that are from different countries that are not the UK and not Netherlands. That I find in Holland it's much more acceptable to go to your manager and to say, I'm having a tough time. And I noticed that maybe my time management can be better, maybe the way I deal with my leadership in my team can be better, and could I please get some help and some training? And that in the Netherlands that is really seen as something very brave and something that is very admired, because that means you want to grow as a person and as a professional, and it's embraced. While in the UK, as far as I hear from my clients, it's utterly not done to such an extent that I have clients who really only want to talk with me after the business hours, who do not want their boss to pay for our sessions. Even that might be an option for them. They still prefer to pay it from their own private wallets, just because they so do not want people at work to know that they are struggling. And that was a big surprise for me in the beginning. That has to be hidden more than I feel needs to be done in the Netherlands. Yeah.
And our listeners, both Karin and I are actually Dutch nationals living in London, and I have worked for most of my life in Netherlands as well. And I've been in London for the last 7 years. And I think you're right, Karin. There is a cultural difference in terms of how open can you be in a corporate environment around specific training and skills that you would like to, improve upon. And it feels to me, from my perspective, that in Holland that there is more space for people to be authentic, and that in England there is less space to be truly authentic, especially if you have what are so-called weaknesses or things that you need to improve upon. And I think also the pace in England is much, much, much faster. And I would say that actually I've worked in very tough environments in the Netherlands. I mean, I was working with a company that was publicly quoted. Another one was part of the Big Four or Big Five then. So, we're not talking about environments that are, where there is no ambition, or where you can actually just, do nothing. I was required to work really, really hard. But at the same time, there was a lot of encouragement of actually, we are here to train you, we are here to help you succeed. Whereas if I look in the English environment, it's more like, we want to hire the best people, and it's almost like, there's going to be a healthy competition between the team members, and the healthy competition is almost encouraged. So almost admitting that you need help or that you need support is almost like crippling yourself in your career. And I'm not sure that I know of that this is typically English, but this just happens to be my experience. And of course, I also have clients now from all over the world. And I can say Hong Kong, where I have lots of clients, Hong Kong was a British colony. And I can say that Hong Kong is equally as tough as the United Kingdom. And when I was in the Netherlands and I was considering a transfer to Hong Kong, I actually heard so many horror stories about Hong Kong that I was totally demotivated to go to Hong Kong. I just thought, well, I'm not sure I'm going to fit in that culture, but I could make the transit to come to the United Kingdom, because at least I felt that there was still a basis of fairness in the system in the United Kingdom. So maybe some of the listeners, if they dare to talk to us later on, could maybe reflect on this. Karin, do you think the cultural component is such a big factor?
In what way do you mean?
That, for instance, what we think is in the Dutch culture, the Dutch working culture or corporate culture, it's more done, it's more accepted to actually say, I want to grow, and these are the areas where I am struggling. Whereas in the United Kingdom, or maybe Hong Kong, or maybe, certain parts of, certain industries in the U.S., it's maybe less done. And maybe that has to do with the culture as well, the way that people are able to be authentic in that specific culture. I can imagine it has a cultural component. Yeah. But then if I think about clients of mine who come from different countries, I think what I'm kind of thinking out loud, what I usually hear them say is that they feel that they cannot really be themselves at work. Mm-hmm. It's like they say, I have certain values and I have certain beliefs, and certain things are important for me, and I believe that all these things cannot be lived in this company. So all these aspects of myself that are important are not getting any space within my working life, and therefore I exhaust myself. So it's not just the hours, it's because it's not nourishing, it's not fulfilling in any way. And then because they start to feel very tired or very unhappy, they are struggling more. And then yes, in London or in the UK, that is not as
that's not so common to actually say that to your manager. But in the conversations that I have with my clients, they don't talk that much about, oh, it's such a shame that in this country I cannot be more open about how much I'm struggling. They talk more about what the effect is on them of not being able to be authentic, and how badly they would like to be in a career where they feel they can be truly themselves. And when that their working life is aligned with their inner world, so to speak.
And can you maybe share with us a little bit of the insights of how you coach people through these instances where there is probably a misfit between the values of somebody's inner world and what they need to do at work? Because I definitely also, would like to share my insights, but I would love to hear from you how you coach your clients through that.
What's nice, we're going to be learning from each other, because I'm curious what you're going to say.
Yeah, definitely.
Two things that come up. First of all, with some clients, I need to do some short-term work first before the middle long-term work can be done. And the short-term work would be just about making them feel a bit better. Some clients really feel that they are not sleeping properly, that their body is aching, their back and their shoulders and their neck, everything is painful, and they feel quite full in their head, like there's like a fog and there's no clarity, and there is a lot of mind space being used by thinking about work. So with those clients, I first help them just to feel a bit better again, to have some breathing space, to have some clarity again, to not maybe feel so tearful or not feel so angry or not feel so upset, and to come in a bit of a better place. So that would be like the short-term work. And then when they feel in a bit more rejuvenated place, and then the real work starts to happen around having a job that is aligned with who you are. And the way I do that is that I always draw a little iceberg on a piece of paper, and then halfway this iceberg I put the level of the water. So it's really like this ship of Titanic that is driving towards this iceberg, but there's this huge part underneath the water that you can't see. And the part above the water, I explain, is about people's visual behavior, about people's actions. So that's where your skills are, and your qualifications and your abilities and your capacities and your previous experience and your expertise. So this is all visible stuff, and this stuff is often in your CV and what is spoken about when you have job interviews. But for me, actually, I find it almost more interesting to talk about the whole part of the iceberg that is below the level of the sea and that you can't see, because what is there are someone's character traits and someone's qualities, someone's talents and passions. It's about what motivates someone and what drives someone. It is where your values live and your beliefs and your assumptions around the world. And I think from that part we get a sense of meaning and a sense of purpose. And for some people, I even talk about someone's essence or someone's spiritual side or someone's soul. Some of my clients are not into that stuff. They think it's too much airy-fairy and incense-like. And other people love it, so I don't mind. It depends on the person. But I think this whole part that of someone that lives in their inner world needs to be known to someone. And I often use coaching exercises so people become aware and conscious of all these aspects of themselves, and how crucial it is to have a company or an organization or a mission statement of an organization, or the products that they're selling that are aligned with all these aspects of yourself that are deeper inside of you. And as soon as people become more aware of those, they start looking for jobs or for companies that fulfill those aspects of themselves, and then they automatically find their joy back and their energy back and their zest for life back in their working time. That's kind of, with this iceberg model, that kind of describes well how I work.
Okay, so would you say that a lot of the time there needs to be a job change or a career change even sometimes?
That's not up to me, that's up to the person. Some people stay, but with a different attitude, or in a different way. So I have, for example, clients that are used to work on very, very high levels of intensity and adrenaline, and it's like they're always switched on, they're always on the go, and they're always doing stuff, and they never stop. And actually, when they start living in a different rhythm and in a different pace and more connected with themselves, and that they take a bit more rest, they start enjoying their jobs again, simply because they're coming from a place inside that is more calm, and then they stay. Other people change within the company, and some of them leave. And sometimes I actually admire people who stay. So I have, for example, I work with bankers that stay on purpose, and they have very, very beautiful values, and they want to change the system from within. And I really admire that. I really like that, because in a way, if there's an organization that is quite toxic and that is quite treating their employees and their clients in not a very nice way, if all the good people leave, then it's very difficult for the organization to change. And actually, if some of the ethically correct, so to speak, people stay, they can really make a difference there. So I quite admire it in a way if people stay, but I also admire when people leave. I did that, and it felt very scary. It needed a lot of courage to dare to leave. So it's up to the person to do what they feel is right for them.
So I left as well. I mean, speaking personally, I was a tax lawyer, and I found out that it wasn't really, there was nothing wrong with the culture. There was just a mismatch between actually what I wanted to do in skills and what the company could offer me. But I loved the culture, but it was just because the skills were not basically giving me energy. It was draining me. So, and then I went to a job for 10 years as a headhunter where I loved the skills and I loved what I had to do day by day. And I worked there for a long time for 2 companies. And definitely I loved the work. I loved the content. But at one point I felt that I had to move on to start my own practice, because I needed to challenge myself to really, follow my dream, follow my bliss. And those are also things that people can deal with, which is they can't come at a certain time of their career, they can't come to a certain plateau where the company cannot, satisfy their need for growth or for development. And that is probably something you also see, Karin?
That people can't grow in the company, yes. Yes, I see that. Yes, I do.
Yeah. And what I would like to share a little bit about how I've coached some of my clients in terms of if they are dealing with the struggle in companies. So I've been extremely influenced by my last training. I've done a lot of trainings, healing, family constellations, organizational constellations, to a lot of work, Jungian analytical psychology, and now in the strategic intervention coaching training with Anthony Robbins and Chloe Madanas. But the last training, I've really become aware that actually a lot of people go to work with the attitude of wanting to get something from work, meaning that we tend to project onto work what we project onto relationship, i.e., we think that work or / relationship should make us happy. And so we see happiness or fulfillment as something that we're going to get. It's almost like something that we're going to take from an external place and put it inside of our body. So, and basically the reality of things is that there's nothing outside of us that can fulfill us. So to believe that work can actually fulfill us is something that is going to be a long search. It's like the search for the Holy Grail. It's the same as thinking, okay, I'm going to find my soulmate and this person is going to complete me. Well, what I've been trained to look at is to actually encourage people to see how they can give more of themselves in the current environment. So even when my clients come and they are challenged to the maximum, and we are talking about sometimes extremely dysfunctional relationships, dysfunctional behavior, backstabbing, or bosses that are not communicative, or sometimes yelling at them, people, behavior that is really hard to deal with, I must admit. But I will always share with my clients that they are more powerful than they think they are. That is that they should never ever accept the identity of a victim, of somebody that is powerless, and that no matter what happens, they can decide the meaning of what happens to them. I.e., if a boss yells at you, are you going to take it personally? Well, if you're going to take it personally, then it means that you have inner work to do. Because if you didn't believe what the boss was saying in the way that he was saying it, it wouldn't affect you that much. And you could still address it with this specific individual in a way that could, maybe change the dynamic of the relationship. And I have to tell you, listeners, that I've been extremely successful in helping my clients regain their power over what they thought were helpless or hopeless situations. And I think there is something to be said around the humanity of everybody that works in the workplace. So if your boss, for instance, or if people around you are yelling, or they're backstabbing, or they're doing things that are really, making food for a toxic work environment, I would say these people are all acting out of fear. They're all coming out from a pattern where they're almost, acting from a survival type of mindset. And the person that can rise above that, those are the people that I coach. The people that I coach, I challenge them to rise above the survival mindset and to become a leader no matter what happens. So what I teach them is the framework of my studies is basically you can always, no matter in whatever circumstance you are, you can always determine or decide that you are going to contribute to the environment, to your work environment or to your community or whatever it is, and you can always decide that you're going to grow. If you're not going to grow, you might leave the job, let's say, or leave the relationship, and you might come into another environment and repeat the old mistakes of feeling disempowered, feeling like a victim, resenting people that might be acting out of fear at that moment and not showing their leadership. I'm always inspiring my clients, and I'm always trying to help them see that no matter what happens, they can always be a leader. They can always influence people. And I'm very happy to say that just this model of inspiring them to grow, inspiring them to contribute every day, and that is the key to their happiness and to their fulfillment, that has actually made them make changes in the way that they relate to their superiors and to their work environment. And it has made them see how actually a lot of people at their work are suffering because they're operating from the paradigm that work should make me happy, work should give me this and this and this, whereas if you start thinking about what can I give to work, and become the best that you can be, become the leader without a title, that actually everything shifts around. And it doesn't mean that these people will stay in these jobs, because sometimes they still want to leave, but the way that they're going to leave the environment is in such an empowered way, i.e. it means that they are actually way more confident in how they're going to deal with the challenges that come as they come. And of course, my background was that I was a headhunter for 10 years. And as a headhunter, I mean, all the CEOs and managing directors that I've been recruiting or assessing, they didn't grow because it was so easy for them. They had to grow despite the challenges, and they were growing because of the challenges. So for me, the leadership aspect of a person's life is extremely important, meaning never accept that you are powerless. And that is something that I believe that a lot of people can adopt as their paradigm, that they should, never give in to the voices in their head which are saying, oh, all these people around me are horrible. You can say that. You can, of course, see that a lot of people are horrible, but you can also see that they're caught in a system where they believe that they don't have other choices. And what I'm doing with them is I'm helping them to see that there are other choices, that they can still, despite all the fear around them, act in accordance with their own inner value system, and that actually that is being authentic in their work, and that actually when you operate from that paradigm, you will find a lot of people that start to trust you, and you will start influencing people, because you will see that people are not, despite their behavior, people are humans. And if you can elevate yourself to that position of leadership, you can also elevate them into positions of leadership. So a lot of my clients have actually improved their relationships with their superiors and their environments. And they have actually shifted around the way that they look at their work, but more importantly, they shifted the way that they look at themselves. And so I myself have been extremely, I feel very, very blessed that I've been able to coach my clients through these difficult times, because as you may know, Karin, when our clients go through these difficult times, it is our first instinct is to feel empathy for them, is to really feel, oh my God, how can I help my client get out of here? Or how can I help? Because actually there is no guarantee that whatever we're going to give them will help them in their situation. But I found that when I was challenging my clients, and I would actually ask them to experiment with me, to be held accountable, to change their mindset, even though it was difficult, that made it worthwhile. And to give you a little bit of background about some of the clients that I was working with, changing jobs wasn't the immediate solution, because sometimes we were dealing with a corporate environment where sometimes if you would quit your job, it wasn't that easy to find a new job, if you know what I mean. So I wasn't encouraging them to quit their job. I was never encouraging them to think that it was greener, on the other side of the grass. So those are the things that I would say, don't think that it's greener on the other side of the grass. If there's a specific pattern that you run as an employee, you're going to run that pattern again in another environment. And so I don't know whether you have questions for me, or whether you could relate to maybe you also coaching some of your clients to actually step up and to change, as you said, some of these people stayed in an environment, but they became more aligned with themselves and then started making a difference from within the organization.
I've really enjoyed listening to you. I think it's very, very empowering.
Yeah. Thankfully, it is for my clients. Thank God. They could have they could have failed, right? I could have taught them this model and encouraged them, and they could have failed. But I can only say that, when you come from a place of integrity, and you come from a place of I'm here to serve, I'm here to give and I'm here to grow and I'm not here to blame and I am a leader, that everybody will be affected by it. There is no way that people don't, there's just something about these people when they step up and they change their attitude and they change their identity and they step out of their comfort zone, out of the territory of I'm a victim, then they suddenly start seeing that there's so much within their control. And actually a lot of people around them that are moaning and bitching and, being negative and, thinking, I should get a job or I should get that promotion and whatever. I mean, these people are stuck because they don't see the things that they can shift that could actually make their life much more fulfilling, even where they are now. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, it's really nice to listen to you. And one of the things that I really like about what you're saying is how you keep the integrity of the other side intact. I hear myself in an echo now. Do you do? I wonder if you do too. So if my voice sounds a little bit strange, then you know why.
Yeah, there is no echo, thankfully, not here. Yeah.
So I really like to, even if a boss is a bully or a colleague is envious or someone treats us in a way that we don't like, to still as a coach talk about them with integrity and to understand that they too are just a human being and that they too wake up in the morning hoping that they have a nice day at work and their partner continues to love them, or that they might find one day if they're single. They're also human beings and they also have the wish to be happy, even though we might not understand the way they go about it, and that the way they go about it seems quite counterproductive. They are still just like you and me, a human being, and I think that is a really beautiful position to have as a coach, to keep the integrity of everyone intact. And I think one of the things that I notice sometimes in my clients is that when they are in a certain position where they are really unhappy in their job, that it's almost as that they can't access their own resources anymore. It's like they're so numbed or in such a robot-like place or so exhausted that they almost don't recognize themselves. I often hear my clients say, like, this is not me. Like, I'm standing in front of my boss and I have nothing, I cannot come up with something assertive to say back. Why can't I stand up for myself? It only, I can only think of what I want to say an hour later. Or why am I allowing myself to be treated like this? Or what made me not able to speak up in this board meeting? So then people see that I have something to offer. So a lot of my clients are almost surprised, like they don't recognize their own behavior, they don't recognize their own mood. So they have come to a place that is so different than what you help them to get back into this empowered place. I find that fascinating, that we can really go to a place where we don't seem to be able to access our own resources anymore. And by speaking to someone like you or like me, we can find that back in ourselves, like all these things that we have inside of us to be able to deal with the situation. But it's as if we've forgotten or can't access it or don't know anymore how to do those things.
Yeah, I think there's something physiological around it, chemical, meaning if like I've actually had clients that would go into the workplace and let's say, weekend they would be fine, and as soon as they got into the workplace they would get angry or they would get totally stressed out. And I think, because I'm a healer, of course, I do believe that the energy or the consciousness of an organization affects the individual. So you could do, I don't know how many meditations, but as soon as you get into the consciousness field of an organization or a certain division, you will be affected by what's happening there. And so certain, and of course that could also be very visible in terms of behavioral patterns and the stress level. So the stress levels is, you have a lot of cortisol running through your body, and actually when people are very stressed, they're not accessing the neofrontal cortex, which is the executive brain. So there's a lot of physiological things that happen, but definitely I believe there is something around the level of consciousness at which people create problems and at which they are becoming unresourceful in transcending the problems, because they keep looking for solutions at the level at which they created the problems. And actually, to create a solution, you need to almost get out of that consciousness. But that's why you need to work with a coach. That's why a lot of organizations, if they want to change, they need to bring in people to overhaul the culture, to really look at, top down or bottom up, what is really happening here. And so I think and of course there's also other things that happen, because one of the other trainings that I've done was organizational constellations, where we look at when people actually get into these states of unresourcefulness, there's actually some kind of regression sometimes, and it can stem, from, parent-child type of dynamics or teacher-student type of dynamics. To be honest, when I came to the United Kingdom, and I've done a lot of training in the United Kingdom, and I wasn't really aware of the schooling system in the United Kingdom, I was actually extremely surprised by how much bullying went on in the United Kingdom, that a lot of people as adults were reporting that when they were in school, or they were in private school or boarding school, or sometimes just normal school, that sometimes the teachers were extremely abusive with their words, and sometimes that they were bullied at school. And for me that was a huge surprise, because that was not my experience, and I'm not sure that would be tolerated in the Netherlands. And correct me if I'm wrong, Karin, but for somehow that seemed to be something that happened quite often in the United Kingdom. So when then people go into a work environment, these authoritarian or powerlessness type of states can come back. On the other hand, it could have nothing to do with something historical. It could just be that a person has, in their mind, is putting themselves in a position of submissiveness opposite the person that is treating them in a certain way. And of course, there's also the other things that we could look at, which is the communication skills of the bosses involved. If people are under stress, maybe they are not communicating in the most effective way. So their most, stressful side comes out. So they might say, oh, where's that report? Or why did you do that with the client? Instead of, in a more consultative manner saying, was there another way that we could have handled this report? Or, do you know what I mean? And I think because corporate life is very stressful and demanding and competitive, sometimes people are not always, at their best behavior. And I don't know whether, Karin, you have something to add to this. Maybe there is something that we could, give to the listeners that they could actually take with them in their life, in their stressful meetings with their clients and their bosses, that they could immediately implement. Yeah.
Yes, I agree what you say about the schooling experience in the UK.
Yeah.
I really noticed that as well. How
really? Yeah.
scarring that has been for many people.
Yeah.
What came up with me when I was listening to you is this thing about. Does it come from like the past, or is it just bad luck, or is there a repetitive pattern, or is there something in ourselves that can be overcome, and that we are in a certain situation in life that is very challenging, but that in hindsight it might be the biggest gift, because it can really be a huge opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm sure you come across as well with your clients is something that in psychological terms we call limiting beliefs.
Yes.
So a lot of people walk around with certain assumptions and certain beliefs inside of their head that are actually sabotaging themselves. So it can be something like, I don't deserve it, or it's not going to happen for me, or everybody will be promoted but me, and you see, I told you so. It's going to happen for you.
Yeah.
You're not smart enough, or not good enough, or not beautiful enough, or not thin enough, or not lovable enough.
Or I'm a woman, or I'm a man, I'm not the right ethnic, I didn't go to the right school, I wasn't born in the right family. So people use so many excuses.
Definitely. I'm too old, I didn't have the right qualifications, I never really got the right schooling. So we have these beliefs inside of us that are very, very powerful if we allow them to be. And to say, like, can we give something to our listeners that might immediately make a difference? I would invite everybody to become very conscious of this inner talk inside of our own heads that is actually putting ourselves down and that continues to keep us in this victim position that Angelique is talking about, and that keeps us in this place of hopelessness and helplessness and unable to do something about the situation, because actually we keep on telling ourselves that we're unable to get out. And once we become very aware and very conscious of this inner dialogue that sabotages us, we can change it. But the first step is to become conscious of what the message is that you are giving yourself. And some coaches work with that in a way to just come up with the positive opposite. And to have that as a mantra with you, so just to repeat a much more nurturing message. And other coaches look more in depth, and I quite like that. And it depends on the client if they are interested in going there to see where that comes from. Because I always say to people, when we were born into this world, my goodness, we thought we were amazing. We were wonderful, and the world was wonderful, and everything was one big adventure. And it's only when we start becoming toddlers and growing up and becoming older and teenagers and young adults and into our adulthood that all these much more negative beliefs start to kick in, and they came from somewhere. And in order to really heal them and to get rid of them, I personally find it very interesting to be curious where they come from.
Yeah. The other thing that I teach my clients is that there are a few toxic ways of thinking, and this comes actually from a book that I read that I actually really recommend to a lot of my clients. And there are 7 toxic ways of thinking, and so it's not just become aware of your negative thoughts, but there are certain ways of thinking that are always detrimental to your health, actually. And so one of them is devaluing either yourself or others. The other one is blaming, which is victimhood. Another one is comparing yourself with others or competing with others. Another one is always being either in urgency or procrastination, because these are always, pointing into deeper issues. And another one is catastrophic thinking, and I was really good at that, I can tell you. I'm actually still very good in catastrophic thinking, but at least I know I am a catastrophic thinker. And another one is all or nothing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to give my all, or I'm going to give nothing, and there's no way in between, and I'd rather be right than be happy, that type of behavior. So these types of thinking, if I was going to give, the listener at home, a little bit of an advantage of how they can be discerning regarding their own thoughts and how they are disempowering themselves on a day-to-day level, and then I would think about these 7 ways of thinking, because a lot of the time our thinking is directing our emotions and the chemicals in our body directly. So on the one hand, yes, you can do a lot of good work with coaches, and definitely if you're having issues, I would invite you to to look at, coaching if this is a very serious area of struggle, or a career consultant or whatever. But on the other hand, if you're, just basically having minor issues, then it could just be a few tweaks in the way that you think and the way that you operate. So I think we're almost coming at the end of our show, and I don't see people logged on as a Skype caller. And the issue is, if people don't log on via Skype or they don't call in, we can't actually hear them. So callers, if you actually want to talk to us, you'd have to log in via Skype or call us via the local dial-in numbers. And there are local dial-in numbers, I believe, for the UK and US, and I believe Canada and Australia. But for other countries, there are actually no local dial-in numbers, so you'd have to call in via Skype. But if we don't get questions, I would, Karin, could you please give your website again to people and tell them about how they can get an introduction session with you?
Yes, I'd be happy to. And people can always email us and ask their questions. Both of us will be happy to reply. My website is vitaliscoaching.com, VITALIS coaching.com. And if people are interested to know a little bit more, they can fill in the free callback request form or just drop me an email, and then we can have a telephone conversation completely free of charge to get a better idea of what it is that I could offer and what it is that you're struggling with yourself, or what it is that you would like to have some tweaking around with. And those phone calls are free of charge. There are no strings attached. So I'd be happy to have a talk.
Yeah.
And to see if I could be of benefit to you in any way.
Yeah. And maybe last but not least, could you maybe, what did you get out of this call, Karin? Because I always like to maybe do a summary for people, because they've been bombarded with so much information. So what did you get out of the call, and would you like, so that actually the listeners can say, oh yes, that's what I got out of the call.
What I got out of what you told me, which I have really enjoyed, is to keep the integrity of all the people involved intact. I really like that. I really liked how you help people to get from the victim position into a much more empowered place, and to let them keep at the front of their mind that they always have more abilities and capacities and ways to deal with the situation than they might believe. And I'm definitely going to Google those 7 toxic way of thinking. Also for myself, I think that is very good to read, and never too old to learn and have a reminder. And I didn't know those in that way, so I'm going to Google that. And what I spoke about is this mask that we carry, that is very exhausting, and how to become more aligned with our outer worlds and our inner worlds, and to become aware of our values and our qualities and our talents and our motives, and to have a real sense of meaning in our working lives, and to be aware of our limiting beliefs and overcome these, so we can really start thriving again.
Yeah, I do have an ending question to you, because you actually do also workshops on the mask, right? And as a Jungian, we've talked a lot about the persona, and basically a lot of us are wearing masks because we don't know ourselves to that extent. We believe that we are a certain way because of our patterns and of our identity, but you could almost say that we are wearing a mask even for ourselves. But can you maybe say a little bit about, my question would be, is it always safe for somebody to put down their mask in their work environment? Or is it sometimes not so safe? Or are there intelligent ways to put down the corporate mask and still be successful at work, which is, I think, the subtitle of our talk tonight?
I believe that in many circumstances it can be very, very beneficial to not show your true colors and to be cautious and careful. and to trust our own intuition when we really want to be real and open and vulnerable, and when we want to protect ourselves a little bit more. I think that is very human and very important and very good. I think for me it has more to do with becoming aware of when we do it and why we do it, because in some cases the mask might actually be very, very counterproductive. I wanted to say something, but it slipped my mind. It doesn't matter.
How do they know it's safe to maybe be more authentic? Or is there a way that there is a middle way, meaning that you can show, that you can be balanced in the way that you maybe make a difference from the inside out in an organization or a culture?
How do people know when it is safe to show their mask?
Yeah.
I'd say use all your resources. So use your head, use your heart, use your gut feeling, use your intuition. And some people are by nature a bit more cautious or a bit more introverted, or they take a bit longer before they really open up, and that's perfectly fine. And other people by nature are much more outgoing and much more extroverted and immediately show much more. Other people show way too much. They are quite boundaryless, and they give their everything, and then later they regret it, and they feel quite embarrassed or ashamed even that they have kind of given too much too soon. So it's for everybody to decide their own boundaries and where they would like them to be placed. And now I recall what I wanted to say. It's about being a master of how open and how vulnerable you'd like to be. So by that I mean that it's your own conscious choice to do or to do not allow ourselves to be vulnerable. I think being vulnerable is utterly beautiful, and it really invites other people to do the same, and it can make real beautiful relationships, both in working life and in private life and in intimate relationships. But to trust ourselves when to do that, because in the end we are worthy to be taken good care of, and the best person to do that is ourselves. Yeah.
I would like to say from the model that I work with, because I believe that all of us hardly have scratched the surface of who we think we are, meaning we are identified with our patterns, and then we think that's who we are. But actually, if you see life as life would never give you a challenge that you couldn't handle, then every challenge that comes your way, even if it is around identity of, are you supposed to be wearing this mask because this is what is required to survive in this corporate environment, or are you going to totally go the opposite, which is I'm going to be totally authentic? I think, both of them are probably not the ideal solution, because there is always what I would always advise is really be aware that there is an inner wisdom in all of us, and that inner wisdom is beyond the mask and even beyond our knowing of who we are. And sometimes when we connect with that inner wisdom, we can then also see the suffering of others around us. We can have compassion, and we can then become a professional diplomat in a very nurturing and healing and empowering way, and so that you become a trusted leader in the company, where before it might have been that you didn't trust anybody, but you might decide that you're going to trust yourself, and that you are going to lead the way in becoming the change that you seek in the world. And so, although that was, a quote by Mahatma Gandhi, I believe that a lot of us, are very very idealistic when we think about big sweeping political changes, but they're very unwilling to make these changes in their direct life, meaning in their work or in their relationship. But that is exactly where we need to make these changes. And so I would always say, if you believe you have to wear a mask, then it is very, very inspiring and very critical that you become very curious about who are you behind the mask, and how can you bring more of the authentic you into the corporate life without believing that it will hurt you. Because my experience is that the more you show of yourself, not in a childish way, not in a negative way, not in a damaging way, of course, in a constructive way, the more that you show of your beauty and of your talents and your gifts and how you're there to serve and contribute as a leader, the more professional people will treat you, and the more respect you will just demand because of the way that you show up. And so that is what I would like to, share with the people who are listening. And of course, I'm challenging myself to do this as well in my own relationships with work, clients, and bosses, etc., Karin, because otherwise I wouldn't be saying this. So I probably will. Actually, I might send this recording to my boss and ask her to listen to it so that she can actually, comment on it as well. So I really want to thank you, Karin. I really, really enjoyed our talk. I really love, the way that you think about things, because otherwise I would not have asked your opinion. Karin is her website is full with interesting articles, and she is regularly featured in a lot of big newsletters and e-zines. So if you subscribe to her newsletter, I'm sure, or you like her Facebook page, Vitalis Coaching on Facebook, I'm sure that you can actually follow her. And I really think that you have a very valid point of looking at how people can turn around their lives in corporate life. So I enjoyed our talk very, very much.
So did I. Did I. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been my pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much. And everybody, if you have questions, do let us know, and like our Facebook page and Let Love Come to You, or register for newsletter. And we will be having other hosts talking to us about how to love the work that you hate. And in summary, I believe the work that we have to do is not about our job. The real job that we have in our world is to become the best of ourselves. And that is the biggest gift that we can give to ourselves and to our environment. So that would be, my inspiration for you, especially if you're struggling or if you don't see the light in a situation. So thank you so much, Karin. I'll talk to you soon, okay?
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.